The Whispering House, 1910. It was around the year 1910. Electricity had reached some parts of America by then, especially the bigger cities, but in the rural areas, entire towns and villages still fell into deep darkness once the sun went down. And that darkness was different, heavier. Every shadow felt like it had a heartbeat. My younger brother Nathan and I had gone to visit a distant relative who lived in a quiet, remote village in the state of Vermont, surrounded by dense forests and hills. But the real reason we went wasn't just for a friendly visit. We had heard about a house, an old, abandoned place not far from our relative's property. They called it the Hollow House. People said anyone who went inside never came back the same. Some disappeared entirely. Others returned, but were never right again. Some went mad. Some never spoke another word. We heard all this from the relatives themselves. And once we did, Nathan and I made up our minds. We had to see it for ourselves. When we finally arrived, the area took our breath away. It was beautiful, quiet hills, tall pines swaying in the wind, and an eerie stillness in the air that felt too perfect. But it was also unsettling. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your heart beat louder than usual. As we settled in and spent time with our relatives, the stories began to come more freely. At first, whispered over evening tea, then in quiet, serious tones at night when the kids were asleep. We learned more about the Hollow House. It once belonged to a wealthy man, someone powerful in the region, but feared rather than respected. People said he was involved in dark practices, black magic, rituals no one dared to witness. His wife, in contrast, was known to be gentle and deeply religious. The villagers loved her. But then, everything changed. One night, she disappeared. Later, it was said that he had killed her, perhaps in one of his twisted rituals. A few weeks later, he was found dead in the same house, hanging from a beam in the main hallway. They said he had taken his own life. But no one believed it was just suicide. The whispers claimed her spirit came back, that it dragged him into death, that she wasn't done, and neither was he. Even after death, people claimed his presence never left the house, that the evil in him only grew stronger. People who went near the place felt sick. Animals refused to go close. Strange noises, shadows moving on their own, things no one could explain. And yet, Nathan and I, we still wanted to see it. One morning, Nathan and I went out for a walk around the village. After some time, we stopped at a small roadside food stall, just a quiet, worn-down place where a few locals sat sipping tea and murmuring among themselves. We took a seat in the corner, and that's when we started overhearing bits of conversation. One man was saying, "Just a few weeks ago, 3 young men went to that house. Curiosity, that's all. But none of them ever came back." Another voice added, "Some who did come back, they weren't really there anymore. They don't speak, just wander. Empty eyes, like they left their souls behind." We sat in silence, the weight of those words pressing down on us. Then an older man, barely above a whisper, said, "Even now, at night, you can still hear crying from inside that house. Screaming sometimes. The doors slam shut on their own. Windows open and close, but there's no one inside. That place, it's alive." That was it for me. Something inside me snapped, or maybe woke up. I couldn't wait anymore. Right then, I turned to Nathan and said, "We're going. Today. Right now. We're going to see that house with our own eyes." We set off on foot. At first, the path was familiar, even peaceful. But the farther we walked, the more the world around us began to change. Houses disappeared. Signs of people vanished. All that remained were trees, thick clusters of them, and a narrow dirt trail that twisted through the forest like it didn't want to be found. The deeper we went, the heavier the air felt, like it didn't want us there. And then we saw it. The house. It stood quiet and still, half hidden by trees and vines. To our surprise, it wasn't terrifying at first glance. In fact, it looked like it had once been a beautiful place. The architecture was elegant, the structure large and symmetrical, though now worn down by time. Peeling paint, cracked glass, part of the roof caved in, and yet it had presence. A haunting, heavy presence. Our curiosity only grew stronger. We looked at each other, and without speaking much, we both knew. We were going inside. I reached out and gently pushed the front door. It creaked open with a slow groan, like it hadn't been touched in years. We stepped in, And almost immediately, something felt off. The house was bigger inside than it looked from outside. Much bigger. The hall stretched on endlessly. Rooms opened into more rooms. The air was colder, thicker. But the strangest part? Outside, it was still daylight. But inside, it was nearly pitch black. The windows were there. The doors were open, yet no light could seem to enter. And that's when we realized we had stepped into something else. Something we didn't understand. Something that had been waiting. In that moment, it felt like the house had been waiting for us all along. We had only just stepped a little further inside when suddenly, slam. The front door behind us slammed shut with such force, it echoed through the entire house like a warning shot. We froze for a second, then instinct took over. We ran, deeper into the house, hallway after hallway, not knowing where we were going. Only that we had to get away. But as we ran, we heard something that froze our blood more than the door did. A laugh. Low at first, then louder. Twisted. Inhuman. It was the kind of laugh that makes your chest tighten, like whoever was laughing was enjoying the fear, feeding off it. We kept running, but the sound behind us changed. Now it was footsteps. Steady, deliberate, like someone or something was following us, getting closer with every step. Tap, tap, tap. And then, another layer of horror. From upstairs, we suddenly heard music. Party music. Laughter. People talking, glasses clinking, like there was some kind of celebration going on above us. But this place, it was abandoned, wasn't it? We didn't have time to think. Then, salvation. A door, slightly open, at the back of the house. We didn't hesitate. We dove through it and burst out into the cold air outside. The moment the air hit our faces, it felt like we could finally breathe again, like we had escaped something alive. But the strangest thing? We had only been inside for a few minutes, yet it felt like we had been in there for years. Time had stretched, twisted, broken. Our bodies felt heavy, our faces pale, and something deep inside both of us had shifted. We had left the house, but a part of it hadn't let go of us. We walked back toward our relative's house, our footsteps shaky and minds heavy. Nathan was clearly shaken. His hands were cold, his face pale. I tried to calm him down. I said, "It's just fear, that's all. Our minds played tricks on us." That door? Probably the wind. The footsteps? Just our own echo. We were scared, so everything felt worse. But he looked at me and said, "Then what about the laugh? The music? The party upstairs?" His voice trembled with something I couldn't quite answer. I stayed quiet, because truthfully, I didn't have an answer. Still, I forced a small smile and said, "But nothing happened to us, right? We made it out. We're okay." But the words felt hollow. Before going back home, we stopped once more at that little roadside stall, the same place where we first heard the stories. The shopkeeper was still there, sitting in the same spot. I walked up to him and asked, "Has anyone ever gone into that house and come back normal?" He stared at us for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Some have returned," he said. "But that house, it always calls them back." We said nothing, but inside, I felt something cold, like a voice, deep and distant, already calling our names again. That night, after returning home, we were completely exhausted. Neither of us had the energy to speak. We quietly ate and went to bed. I don't know what time it was, but suddenly, I woke up in the middle of the night. And when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my room anymore. I was inside that house. But this time, it didn't look old or abandoned. It looked new, just like it must have looked back when that man lived there. And right in front of me, he stood, the terrifying owner we had heard so many stories about. He had me tied up, surrounded by strange symbols, black candles, and objects I didn't recognize, definitely black magic tools. His eyes were glowing, and in his hand, there was a knife. He was chanting something, calling on the devil, saying I was meant to be sacrificed. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My voice was trapped in my throat. And then suddenly, I woke up. I was drenched in sweat, heart racing, body trembling, but I was relieved. It was just a dream. But right then, I noticed something strange. Nathan was gone. He had been sleeping next to me, but now the bed was empty. His belongings were still there. The door wasn't open, but he was missing. My chest tightened. So, was that shopkeeper right? Even those who return, the house eventually calls them back. It was now 2 a.m. The full moonlight outside poured in through the windows, bathing everything in pale silver. I wanted to wake up our relatives, but I realized by the time I explained everything, it might be too late. So I didn't wait. I stepped out alone toward that house. One more time. Once again, I was walking down the same path. But this time, it felt darker, quieter, and far more terrifying than before. Slowly, the signs of civilization disappeared. Around me, only trees and thick forest. But now, everything looked sinister. In the distance, I suddenly saw my brother. He was walking, but something was wrong. His steps looked unnatural, as if someone was dragging him forward. His eyes seemed empty, lifeless. I called out to him, "Nathan," but he didn't respond, as if he couldn't even hear me. I followed him as he slowly walked toward that house again. And then, he entered it. This time, the house looked even more horrifying than it did in the morning. Old, decaying, like it was breathing darkness. But I had no choice. For my brother, I had to go inside. I stepped in. Suddenly, I saw myself standing still, staring. And in front of me, my brother. I grabbed him. As I turned him toward me, I froze. It wasn't my brother. It was that man, the one from my dream. But now, he looked even more monstrous. I ran in fear, heart pounding. Suddenly, a woman grabbed my hand and pulled me into a small prayer room. She said she was that man's wife. She whispered, "He can't come inside this room. As long as you're here, he can't reach you." She continued, "Stay here until morning. Then run, and never look back." But just minutes later, the door began to shake. Then the crosses on the walls started turning upside down, one by one. And outside, that demonic laughter returned. Louder, deeper, more inhuman than before. Suddenly, the door flung open. And without thinking, I jumped out the nearby window. I hit the ground and ran, blindly through the dark. Then, right in the middle of the road, I collapsed. And everything went black. I slowly regained consciousness, to the sound of my brother's voice calling my name. He said he had woken up in the morning and found that I was missing. Panicked, he gathered everyone and started looking for me. When he found me lying unconscious on the road, he kept asking why I had come back here. I looked at him in disbelief. "I came looking for you," I said. "You weren't in your bed last night." But he replied, "I was there. I never left the bed." I didn't argue further. So many questions flooded my mind. Questions I didn't even try to answer. That very day, we left that place. And I made a promise to myself. Neither I nor my brother will ever return to that area again. Because next time, that house might not let us leave alive. The end. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the courage to bring more terrifying tales to life. Like, share, and hit that subscribe button. For more chilling stories, only on The Horror Dream.